Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. We love seeing how far our stories reach. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button and let us know what you think. What would you do if you witnessed something like this in real life? And don't forget, a brand new, mind blowing story drops tomorrow. Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single twist. See you in the next one. The tragic secret behind her unbreakable bond with dogs. The morning mist clung to the narrow streets of Newport, Oregon, weaving through the rows of quaint shops and cafes that lined the historic district. It was the kind of morning where the salty sea breeze mixed with the faint scent of damp wood, where early risers huddled over their steaming coffee, watching the world slowly wake up. But today, like every other morning, the quiet hum of routine was interrupted by an extraordinary sight. Emerging from the mist, six massive German shepherds moved in perfect unison, their sleek coats glistening under the soft light of dawn. Their dark eyes were sharp, scanning their surroundings with an almost military-like precision. They walked with such discipline that they seemed almost mechanical until the townspeople caught sight of their leader. At the center of this powerful formation was a child, barely 7 years old. Emma Parker walked among them, her tiny frame nearly swallowed by the sheer presence of the dogs. Dressed in a faded blue hoodie and worn-out sneakers, she moved with quiet confidence, her hands relaxed at her sides. There were no leashes, no verbal commands, just the slightest shift in her posture, a barely perceptible tilt of her head, and the pack obeyed. The streets grew still. Heads turned. Locals stepped out of doorways, baristas paused mid-pour, and a pair of construction workers on break exchanged startled glances. A child commanding six powerful German shepherds? It defied explanation. Would you look at that? Tom Mitchell, the owner of the local hardware store, muttered as he leaned against his shop's doorway, arms crossed. Those dogs mind that kid better than my own teenagers listen to me. Officer Jake Reynolds, one of Newport's few police officers, watched from his patrol car. He had seen the girl before, but every time he did, it was still hard to believe. No 7-year-old should have that kind of control over six fully trained working dogs. He made a mental note to ask around about the Parker family, not out of suspicion, just curiosity. A few feet away, Margaret Ellis tightened her shawl around her shoulders. The retired school principal had lived in Newport for over 40 years, and she prided herself on knowing the ins and outs of every family in town. But something about Emma Parker and her dogs unsettled her. No child should have that kind of power over animals, she murmured to her friend. It's unnatural. Officer Jake Reynolds couldn't shake the image of the girl and her dogs as he sipped his coffee in his patrol car. The way they moved, silent, disciplined, almost like an extension of her, was unlike anything he had ever seen. He had worked with canine units before, and even the best-trained dogs needed spoken commands or a leash. But not Emma Parker. It was as if she and those dogs shared a secret language, something deeper than training, something instinctual. What unsettled him more was how little anyone really knew about the Parker family. Emma and her grandparents, William and Linda, lived on the outskirts of town, keeping to themselves. No one ever saw the girl play with other children. No one ever heard her speak, except, maybe, to the dogs. That silence, as Jake would soon learn, had a reason. 2 years earlier, on a stormy October night, tragedy struck the Parker family. The rain had been relentless, hammering against the windshield of Michael and Sarah Parker's SUV as they drove home from William and Linda's house. Michael, a former police K-9 trainer, kept both hands steady on the wheel, his eyes narrowed against the sheets of rain. In the back seat, 5-year-old Emma was drowsy, her head resting against Max, the oldest of their German shepherds. They never saw the other car coming. A blinding flash of headlights, the screech of tires, the deafening crunch of metal upon impact. And then, silence. Max was the first to move. Disoriented but unhurt, the massive dog shook himself off, his ears twitching as he took in the wreckage. The front seats were crumpled, smoke hissing angrily from the engine as the first flickers of orange flames licked the edges of the dashboard. The door was jammed, the frame twisted from the force of the crash. But then, he heard it. The soft whimpering from the back seat. Emma. With a fierce determination, Max lunged forward, his powerful jaws clamping onto the seatbelt that pinned Emma in place. With one forceful tug, the belt snapped. He grabbed the collar of her jacket and dragged her through the shattered window just as the flames roared to life. By the time emergency responders arrived, the car was an inferno. Michael and Sarah Parker never made it out. Emma, barely 5 years old, stood in the cold rain, her tiny fingers clutching Max's fur, her wide eyes reflecting the fire that consumed her family. She never spoke a word after that night. After the accident, Emma Parker never spoke again. Doctors called it selective mutism, a psychological response to extreme trauma. But to those who knew her story, it was as if her voice had been buried alongside her parents. Her grandparents, William and Linda Parker, did everything they could. Therapy, speech specialists, even bedtime stories whispered under the dim glow of a nightlight. Nothing worked. Emma remained silent. The only time she seemed at peace was when she was with the dogs, especially Max. He never left her side. Wherever she went, he followed. If she curled up on the floor, he lay beside her. If she refused to eat, he nudged her hand until she took a bite. But something strange began to happen. Emma wasn't just bonding with the dogs, she was controlling them. Late at night, when her grandparents thought she was asleep, Emma would sneak out into the backyard with Max. She would move her hands in small, deliberate gestures, tilting her head just slightly, tapping her fingers against her leg. And Max understood. He moved exactly as she wanted, without a single word spoken. Soon, the other 5 German shepherds followed. Within weeks, Emma had recreated the training techniques her parents once used, but with an eerie precision that seemed almost unnatural. It wasn't just training. It was something deeper. Without leashes, without commands, the dogs moved as if they were an extension of her own body. By the time she was 7, Emma was leading her pack of 6 German shepherds through the streets of Newport every morning, rain or shine. Most of the town had simply accepted it as part of Newport's strange charm. But not everyone felt that way. Margaret Ellis, the retired school principal, watched from her window, her eyes narrowed in suspicion. No child should have that kind of power over animals, she muttered to herself. Word spread fast in a small town. Whispers turned into gossip. Some people admired Emma. Others feared her. But everything changed when a tourist filmed a video of Emma walking her dogs. The footage went viral overnight. By the next morning, Newport was flooded with reporters, curiosity seekers, and skeptics, all asking the same question. Who was Emma Parker? And how was she controlling those dogs? The video changed everything. Overnight, Emma Parker was no longer just the quiet girl with the dogs. She was a mystery, a spectacle that outsiders wanted to witness firsthand. People came from neighboring towns, some out of curiosity, others with skepticism. Was she really controlling the dogs without speaking? Was it some kind of trick? But not everyone saw Emma's bond with the dogs as something special. Margaret Ellis, the retired school principal who had already been wary of Emma, saw the attention as a dangerous distraction. She had spent years protecting children, making sure they followed rules, stayed in line. And yet, here was Emma, an orphaned girl with unnatural control over 6 massive dogs, wandering the town unsupervised. This isn't right, Margaret muttered to herself as she watched another camera crew set up outside the local coffee shop. By the end of the week, she had taken action. A petition began circulating, demanding that Emma's dogs be removed for the safety of the town. Supporters claimed that no child should be responsible for animals that powerful. They whispered about what could happen if the dogs ever turned aggressive. What if someone got hurt? What if Emma lost control? But just as many people rallied behind Emma, defending her bond with the dogs. I've watched that girl walk those dogs every morning, said Tom Mitchell, the hardware store owner. She controls them better than most people control their own kids. Even Officer Jake Reynolds weighed in. I've been observing Emma for weeks, he told a group gathered outside the diner. Those dogs aren't dangerous. They don't act out. They don't show aggression. If anything, they protect her. But Margaret wouldn't let it go. She filed an official request for the town council to investigate Emma's guardianship. If her grandparents couldn't control her, maybe the authorities needed to step in. Maybe Emma needed to be placed somewhere safer. A town meeting was scheduled, And by the time the doors of the Newport Community Hall opened, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Margaret stood at the front of the packed room, her petition neatly stacked in front of her. "This is not a fairy tale," she said firmly. "This is real life. And if we don't act now, something terrible is going to happen." Then, for the first time in 2 years, Emma Parker stood up, and when she spoke, the entire town fell silent. The room was deathly silent. For 2 years, Emma Parker had not spoken a single word. But now, standing in front of the entire town, her voice, small but steady, cut through the tension like a blade. "Please don't take them away," she whispered. "They keep the nightmares from coming back." A ripple of shock swept through the crowd. Margaret Ellis stiffened, her mouth slightly open, caught off guard for the first time. Emma's grandparents, William and Linda Parker, clutched each other's hands, their eyes brimming with emotion. Even Officer Jake Reynolds, who had remained neutral throughout the debate, swallowed hard and looked away. The town had spent weeks arguing over Emma's dogs, treating her like a curiosity, a problem that needed fixing. But in that moment, they saw what she truly was, a grieving child who had lost everything. Then came the second shock of the night. Margaret took a deep breath, her face paling as she turned back toward the crowd. Her hands trembled as she clutched the petition, the very one she had fought so hard for. She hesitated, struggling for words. Then her voice cracked. I was the driver that night. The air in the room grew impossibly still. "What?" someone whispered. Margaret swallowed hard, tears welling in her eyes. 2 years ago, the night Emma's parents died, I was the one who ran the red light. Gasps erupted across the room. "I didn't see them," she continued, her voice breaking. "It was raining. I had a couple of glasses of wine at dinner, but I didn't think I was impaired. Then, in an instant, the headlights flashed, the tires screeched." She choked back a sob, and it was too late. The weight of her words hung in the air. Linda Parker clutched her chest, her breathing ragged. William's jaw tightened, his hands forming fists. But Emma didn't move. Instead, she looked down at Max, her protector, the one who had saved her from the fire. The massive German shepherd whimpered softly, stepping forward toward Margaret. And then, unbelievably, he nudged her hand. Margaret gasped, her body trembling. She had expected hatred, anger, screams. But in Max's dark eyes, there was only understanding. Emma finally lifted her gaze, meeting Margaret's tear-streaked face. "I know," she said simply. Margaret broke down, sobbing. The petition was withdrawn that night. The town council ruled that Emma's dogs would remain with her, recognized as therapy animals. Margaret resigned from her leadership roles, retreating to a quiet life on the edge of town. Every month, an anonymous donation was made to the local animal shelter in the name of the Parker family. And Emma? Every morning, without fail, she still walked through the streets of Newport, her 6 German shepherds moving in perfect sync beside her. This time, the town didn't dare stand in her way. What do you think about Emma's incredible bond with her dogs? Do you believe animals can sense human emotions on a deeper level? Or do you think her control over them is something more mysterious? Let us know in the comments. Would you feel safe in a town where a 7-year-old commands 6 powerful German shepherds without a single spoken word? Or would you be just as uneasy as Margaret Ellis? And what about that shocking confession? Do you think Margaret did the right thing by finally admitting the truth? Or was it too little, too late? We love hearing your thoughts, so don't hold back. Drop your opinions below and tell us, if you were in Newport, whose side would you be on? Emma's or the town's? And don't forget, if you enjoyed this story, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss another thrilling tale. A brand new one is coming tomorrow, and trust us, you won't want to miss it.